A former U.S. Congressman warned our government that a single event could take down the entire power grid, maybe for years.
There is a phenomenon very well known to people who plan wars and build weapons that is called EMP, produced by a nuclear weapon detonated above the atmosphere. It fries all microelectronics. That means there will be no more computers. Your car is full of them. There will be no more electricity. I sponsored legislation about 6 years ago that set up an EMP commission. We could have events in the future where the power grid will go down and it's not in any reasonable time coming back on. For instance, if when the power grid went down, some of our large transformers were destroyed, damaged beyond use. We don't make any of those in this country. They're made overseas. You order one, and 18 months, 2 years later, they will deliver it.
So a congressman just told you the grid could go down and stay down for a year or more. And if you're anything like most folks, your head's probably spinning about now. Where do I even start? Can I even afford this on a fixed budget? Is it already too late? So take a breath with me, because the answer's actually a lot simpler than the problem. This has already happened once. Back in 1989, a solar storm knocked out Quebec's entire grid in about 90 seconds, and people lived through it. When the grid goes down, everything comes down to a short list of things you cannot live without: water, heat, food, and the power to run them. 4 systems. You don't fix them with one giant purchase. You build them one layer at a time, starting with your weakest. So let's walk through all 4, and we'll start with the one that fails first, and that's water. When it's flowing, life feels pretty normal. But when it's gone, everything else just collapses. And I mean, it collapses in a hurry. You can go a long time without a lot of things, but you can't go very long without clean water. And here's the failure point. In town, your water runs on a utility that needs power to purify the water and to pump it up to a tower. A private well, if you're out in the country, it needs an electric pump to pump the water up to your house and pressurize it. And if the grid drops, your water can stop within hours or even minutes as far as that goes. Every family is somewhere on this water ladder, whether they realize it or not. Level 1 is stored water, and every single person here can do this one. Level 2 is having a source of water, like a creek, a lake, rain catchment, plus a way to purify it. And that's your bridge for when the stored water runs low. And then level 3 is an independent supply that just keeps flowing whether the grid's up or down. Real water security is layered, friends. It's layered like this, where there's redundancy. Storage plus a way to purify plus a source. And if one of them breaks, the others help to carry you through.
So plan on 1 gallon per person per day at the bare minimum. 2 obviously is better once you start adding things like hygiene. Your minimum storage goal is 14 days. FEMA talks about prepping for 72 hours, and that's certainly better than nothing. But friends, that just is simply not enough.
Yeah.
A family of 4 times 1 gallon a day times 2 weeks comes out to 56 gallons. Now, to make questionable water safe, you climb up the purification ladder. First, boiling is your back against the wall method. Boil for at least 1 minute unless you're at higher altitudes like 5,000 feet, in which case you'd want to boil for at least 3 minutes. Bleach would be your fallback. If you don't have the ability to boil your water, you would just use about 40 drops or a half a teaspoon of plain, unscented bleach per 5 gallons of water. And be sure it's unscented, please. But that's only if you literally have no other options. Far better would be to get a good water filter. We like Berkey's and Alexa Pure. They seem to be a good replacement for Berkey's since they're getting harder and harder to find recently.
So your first step this week is an easy one. Calculate your water number that Lisa was just talking about. Write it down, and then fill the gap on your water storage at your very next grocery run. Flats of bottled water are absolutely fine to start with, but 5-gallon water dispenser jugs are also a great option, and you can store quite a few of those with limited floor space using a rack. You may also have some hidden water in your home that you haven't thought of before. For instance, 30 to 50 gallons could be sitting in your water heater, just ready to drain out during an emergency. And if you have a heads up in advance, I know we don't always have a heads up, but if you do, you can fill your bathtub. You can even pick up for like $30 something called a water bob, which is basically a heavy duty plastic liner for your tub where you can fill it up with water, and it keeps the water clean where you could potentially even drink it. Beyond that, rain catchment is one of my favorites for folks that are without a well. In town, this may be your only sustainable source of water, so just make sure that you've got plenty of storage capacity. If you're on acreage, your level 3 is going to be a hand pump right on your well. Simple pump or Bison hand pumps, both of those can reach down close to 300 feet or so, static water level, and it installs right alongside your electric pump. I just want to recognize that there's a little more to it than just what I mentioned there, but that is one thing that you can shoot for. If that is your next step, then go for it. And it's entirely doable, friends. Notice the thread that's running through all of it. Your well pump, the town's pump. Water really does run on power. So does your heat, your freezer, your phone. Power is the layer sitting underneath every bit of it. And the tricky part is figuring out how much power you actually need. How big of a generator? Is a power station enough or not quite? If you get that wrong, it's a costly mistake, one that we've watched a lot of good folks make. So we did the math for you. Every appliance, every number, the exact generator, and power station sizing for a home like yours, all in one place. We call it the Emergency Power Toolkit. And it's at thereadylife.com/emergency power kit. Anyway, that's water handled. Heat's next.
Cold doesn't really feel like an emergency right up until it actually becomes one. When the power grid goes out during freezing weather, the real danger goes way past being just uncomfortable. It really is deadly. So many people die every year from power outages that happen during the winter. Even a gas furnace unfortunately needs electricity to run the blower and the controls. So no power, again, you still have no heat. So the question is, can your family stay warm tonight without the grid? So we teach what is called the heat ladder, which is 3 different levels. So level 1 is personal warmth, staying safe through the night with what you've already got. Things like blankets, warm clothes, sleeping bags, stuff like that. Level 2 is room heat. You can turn one room in your home into a safe zone. Then level 3 is a whole home heat option that doesn't lean on the grid, and you climb it in that order. And your best no power heater on night 1 will cost you nothing. It's as simple as shrinking the space, cutting down the air volume around your body. Even something as simple as a hat is a huge heat saver. Build a blanket fort to sleep in. Your kids will have a blast. Whatever you can do to keep the small space heated with your body heat.
A good sleeping bag, base layers, warm socks, a hat, some insulation underneath the body, stuff like that. And then pick one room that you can keep warm and get yourself one indoor rated backup heater. A Mr. Heater Buddy is a great place to start. Just be sure that whatever you use is rated for indoor use, and you use it according to the instructions. Now, if you're out on acreage, there's really no good reason why a home like yours shouldn't have at least one quality wood stove. Figure 3 to 4 cords a winter, depending on your location. Maybe more if it's colder, less if you're in a warmer location. You don't even have to use it as your primary heater. Just have it ready to go.
We've talked a lot about staying warm in winter, but a summer outage during a heat wave can be just as dangerous, especially for the older folks. The good news is you don't need to air condition the whole house. First, block the heat before it gets in by closing the blinds and curtains on the sunny side of your home, and crack windows at night to flush the cool air through. Basements are also a huge perk since they stay cooler naturally. Second, cool your own body. A wet towel on the back of the neck, a spray bottle, plenty of water. Third, move the air. A battery-powered fan or a regular fan run off a power station can make a huge difference. And if you need more, you can run one small window AC in a single room off of a power station topped up by a small generator and cool just that one room while your family rides out the worst of it. You don't have to beat the whole heat wave. You just have to keep one room cool.
Now for food. We already named the failure point, which is the grocery store, and it's 3 days or less of food. 100 years ago, your great-grandmother didn't prep. She just lived prepared because she had no choice. Jars on the wall, root cellar full, enough margin for a bad harvest and a neighbor in need. But Today, we're sitting one disruption away from bare shelves. So the question here is really two parts. If something hits this week, how long could your family eat on what's in your house right now? Then second, could you even cook it without the grid? So here's your ladder. 2 weeks, and then 30 days, and then 90, and then 6 to 12 months. Just working your way up a little bit at a time. And the best road to a 1-year pantry is a 2-week plan that you actually follow through on. 2 things make it work really well. First is a rotating pantry. What I mean by that is summed up in this little quote: store what you eat and eat what you store. So don't just buy a bunch of emergency food. As much as possible, build your pantry up with things that you actually eat. That way it's not wasted, and you just eat it later on and replace it with fresh food. Second is a simple menu, because if your pantry isn't rotating, it's just a museum of expiration dates. And if you don't have a menu, you're just guessing, and guessing gets expensive in a hurry. So those 2 things really help to make it successful.
So, your first step this week is to write down the meals that your family actually ate last week. The mac and cheese, the bean and rice burritos, not the fancy gourmet stuff that you wish you would eat. So, circle the most shelf-stable meals and then do one $50 to $100 grocery run, doubling up a week of it each time that you go to get 2 weeks of groceries.
So you're starting with the 1 week menu,
yes,
and then doubling it up.
And then doubling it up.
2 weeks.
Yes. Okay. So that right there is where you start getting some momentum. Make sure that you have one way that you can cook your food without power. A lot of people have a lot of great food in their pantry, but then when the power goes out, they can't cook it. So get yourself a little Coleman camp stove or an MSR Pocket Rocket or whatever, because if you can't cook when the power's out, a pantry full of staples isn't going to do you a whole lot of good.
And one thing I might mention here is even a propane stove that you have installed in your house, even if you have a propane or gas stove, it's probably still has a little plug that plugs into the electrical outlet because it's using electricity for certain things. It's probably got that little electronic ignition thing. That won't work, but you might still be able to use the top with matches. But the oven is almost certainly not going to work. There's very few ovens out there that work without electricity.
All right, that leads us to power.
Yeah, the second the power goes out, your freezer turns into a countdown clock. And this is the intersection of power and food. So keep that freezer full and only open it once a day. If you've got backup power, even running that freezer just a few hours a day can help a lot to keep it going. Like I said, that's the intersection between food and power. So notice, though, that we've put power dead last on purpose because power sits underneath the other 3. It's the layer that runs them. When the lights actually go out, you either own your power or you don't have any. And here's the core principle that'll save you thousands of dollars. You do not need to power your whole house during an outage, friends. You need to power what keeps your family safe, sane, and functional. And that's it. If you're trying to run the whole house like nothing ever happened, friends, that's a $25,000 or $50,000 conversation. And it's a great option. You can totally do that if you want to put that into it. And they're beautiful, sweet systems. But if you're just trying to keep your family fed, warm, and connected, you can do that for a small fraction of that. So your first step here costs you nothing, and you can do it tonight. It's the 10-minute power down walkthrough. And here's how it works. You go, flip your main breaker off, and walk through the whole house. Write down every single thing that stops working. And that list right there is reality for you. That's exactly what your plan has to cover. Then you sort that list into 3 piles. There's the must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and the don't really need to haves. Here's the magic of it. The smaller you can get that must-have list, the smaller, simpler, and cheaper your whole backup power system gets. Now let me show you how the one move that changes everything that's going to make you sit up straight. Say you cover your essentials and it's about 3 kilowatt hours a day, which that's a small amount of power, but it's doable for just essentials like fridge, freezer, lights, maybe a water pump, stuff like that. So you've got 3 kilowatt hours a day. and you've got a small Honda generator running around the clock to keep your everything powered, 2 weeks of fuel for that is roughly 170 gallons of gas. And that's a real problem.
Yeah.
But add one portable power station, let's say an EcoFlow Delta Pro, and now that battery becomes a teammate for your generator. The power station runs your essentials all day long, silently, with no fumes. And once a day, you fire up that generator for 2 or 3 hours just to recharge the battery. During that same 2 weeks, you go from 170 gallons of gas down to, guess how many? 19.
19.
And that right there, friends, is the difference that the right plan makes.
So here's the power ladder. Level 1 is a bridge power, a quality generator plus a power station for your essentials. And most families will be able to get into that for like $2,000 or $3,000, or even less if your needs are just minimal. Level 2 would be a whole home backup. This could be a large standby generator with a transfer switch that quickly gets your power back up during a blackout. But level 3 would be true independence with a solar power system and a battery bank. But start at level 1. If you're in town or you're renting, a portable power station and a small generator used safely outdoors covers a whole lot, and there's no permanent install to mess with.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on acreage with a well, your biggest issue is the surge when that pump kicks on. Size the generator for that surge. Take a look at a soft start pump and keep your hand pump and stored water as your first layers. And measure before you buy. A $30 kilowatt meter on your fridge will beat guessing every single time.
Now, the most expensive gear you will ever buy is the wrong gear. The undersized generator, the filter that breaks when you need it or won't work with your water, the battery pack that can't run when you actually need it. I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the problems that we see could have been headed off with the right help up front. And it's not unheard of for these kinds of mistakes to cost in the thousands, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that guessing all by itself is what can quietly cost you money and also time in trying to research up front and make the right decisions. But the costliest mistake of all has nothing to do with money. It sounds like this. Oh, I'll get serious about this later when I've got more time, or when I've got more money, or once we finally move and have a little land. Hear me on this, friends. Waiting on its own is not a strategy. Waiting all by itself is how 5 years slip by and nothing gets done. You don't have to be completely ready right now. You just have to start. That's really the key.
First, find your weakest link. Water, heat, food, power. Which one would hurt your family the most today? Second, take one next step on just that one thing in the next 24 hours. And third, repeat this next week or even next month with the second thing on your list.
And fourth, keep going on whatever your weak link turned out to be, because 2 weeks of ready is a great start, but the outages that really test a family can run a lot longer. So we made the video that takes you from 2 weeks all the way to a full month across all 4 systems and really digs into your backup power, which generator, which battery, whether solar's even worth it, so your fridge and your well pump keep running through a long one. It's one click away, right up here on your screen. Just go ahead and tap it. It's the natural next step from here. And once you're ready to lock in your own power without the guesswork or an expensive wrong turn, that's exactly what the Emergency Power Toolkit is built for over at thereadylife.com/emergency power kit.